What up? Welcome to another episode of 94 Feet with Coach JT. As always, like I asked y'all, do me a favor, leave a like in the comment section, subscribe to the podcast, leave some comments, let me know what you think as we keep 2024 rolling. Again, real quick, shout out to Lex Glam, located off Arden Mall, next across from Forever 21. If you need to get any hair products, as far as getting your hair done, getting your hair cut, stop in, let them know Coach JT sent you. Again, Lex Glam in Arden Mall across from Forever 21. I'm making this brief bio of my guest today. My guest today for over 20 years is committed to serves as a culturally responsive and highly engaging approach to inspire personal, professional, and institutional transformation. She's the founder of Mariworks Productions, a multimedia arts and education organization. Her mission is to boost self-awareness and restorative practices with an emphasis on mental health and emotional hygiene. Through the scope of public health, safety, and crisis prevention, her impact on social wellness ushers in motivation and guidance essentials for global change. Miss Marianna, refreshing keynotes, workshops, and training continues to agitate greatness in home, school, neighborhood, and workplace. None other than Miss Marianna is my guest today. Hey,
what's up? How you doing? I'm wonderful.
Appreciate your vibe already. Get going. And as you guys know, and we talked offline, her name is pronounced Marianna. So I'll make sure to roll that R a little bit.
You did a good job. I was saying my name wrong all my life too. My mama had to check me and say, you're supposed to roll that thing. So I never get mad at folks if they call me Marianna, but if you want to put some stank on it, I always say roll that R. It's Marianna.
That's what's up. So again, thanks for being a guest on the show. And as we said before, we're going to jump right into this conversation. However, I do want to give a little background context, just you in general, because if you don't know you guys got to follow her on her Instagram page, see the posts when she's in the classrooms or talking to these students or just out in public also. But before you became what you are evolving to now, give us a little background just about yourself and just where you're from.
It's interesting. I was raised in a very rich community in Sacramento, full of artists, full of activists who really poured into me at a young age. And I have to give props to my mother for that. She recognized that, I was an entertainer and that I was always acting up. And she understood also, too, the importance of placing me in environments where that can flourish in a positive way. I think a lot of the times with the children in our community, they have gifts and talents, but if they're not being placed in environments that will nurture that, we'll cut up and act out in ways that we will garner attention, but it's not always positive attention. And so my mother at a young age saw that I was in lip singing and dancing and performing and acting. And she did a beautiful job of just making sure I got access to a lot of environments where I could flex and explore what that is. So from the Sacramento Repertory Theater, Wose Community Spiritual Church, all these places that nurtured me, but also empowered me with a lot about African history, African ancestry, Black power movements and things like that. So just at a young age, I was exposed to art and culture. So a lot of my roots came through what I call and what I've been, taught from a lot of my elders is known as edutainment. And that's that crossroads, right, between not just entertaining folks, because there's a lot of us out here who want to entertain, we want to be seen, we want to lead people, we want to have followers, but we don't necessarily know where we're leading them to. And then we get blind followers, and oftentimes we're following the likelihood and the attitudes of certain folks that, again, get us in positive or negative influences in harm's way. And so once I started realizing, like, okay, it's cool. You know how to get folks' attention. You know how to get the stage and rock the mic as an MC, a poet, an actress, all these things. But where are you going to take people to? And so that's when I really started diving into getting into activism and leadership in the community. So my roots really, really go deep as far as arts and culture, activism and leadership. And now, as a grown woman now, how I'm serving as a social wellness leader, otherwise known as a social wellness practitioner, is combining the two. So I'm really into engaging community members with fun, with excitement, with thrill, but also making sure that they walk away feeling like they're led in a positive direction, no matter where they are, whatever age. I work with all ages and backgrounds. So that's a bit of my history and how I came to be.
Nice. And this path that you're on now, definitely, like you said, it helped to be kind of cultured and nurtured in that type of environment. But for you, one being a female, but also a Black female, was this difficult a process for you? Or like you said, you saw that earlier, to make it easier because you were in that earlier to kind of say, you know, it's okay to be something different, but also stand out and be that assertive, because the vibe again, right? Again, if you watch the videos, if you see right now, the energy is there. You can't, you can't do what you do now and be kind of in the background or kind of settle up. You jumping out there in the forefront. You got to show your energy, stand in front of classrooms with students and families, but also trusting in what you know, but also able to give it out to people, hoping they can receive it that way. Where does that type of comfortability come from, and confidence?
From not following my path and knowing how crappy it felt and how much trouble and mischief I could get myself into by not surrendering to what my obvious purpose is. So, you know, I like to make things very clear. I have a workbook called Own Your, can we cuss on this show?
You're good. You're good to go.
Okay.
All you.
So I have a workbook called Own Your Shit. And the acronym for SHIT is some healing in there. And I like to be very clear, because people are like, you're so positive, you're doing such amazing things. I haven't always been positive. Right. Part of the reason why I can stand in this lifestyle of owning my shit, refreshing myself, and just trying to be a healthy woman is because I've been in dark spaces in my life, whether that was surrounding myself by people, places, and things that just weren't for my healthy, higher good. And so, you know, if you really peel back the layers, some of the best preachers, motivational speakers, leaders are, look at Malcolm X, right? He had to get off his knees from picking the lock, you know, before he can pick the lock to consciousness. So I think it's really important that we show the duality in leadership, that I haven't always led a perfect life. I haven't always made the best decisions, but I do know the times when I wasn't honest with myself, honest with others, you know, operating at my healthy, higher good, operating like a child of God. I was miserable. And I just got to a point where I wanted to own my shit, because I didn't want to be miserable. I didn't want to waste the gifts of leadership and the ability to make influence on people for the negative. So, you know, I've had those stages in life when I was a young Tinder, and I wanted to be the best rapper alive, and I was calling myself the baddest bitch. And, you know, I was, you know, pit bull in a skirt, you could get hurt. Like, I did all of those things. And not to say that I am not an assertive woman, but the level of aggressiveness was actually hinged into a lack of healing. And so I think a lot of the time when you see women who are just aggressive for like no reason, not because you have to defend yourself or whatever, that's really a cry and a shout of pain. So to me, the louder the cry, the deeper the pain. And so I realized through MCing and certain things, even in poetry, it was like hella drab and sad. And I get it, like we create pain and we turn it into purpose, but sometimes we can get stuck there and that becomes our identity. And I realized, like, no, I don't want to be the baddest bitch alive. I don't want to be the baddest bitch in the rap game. I actually want to be the healthiest woman I can be. And whatever gifts and skills that I offer is just a plus. And so when I was going down that route, I was being kind of disingenuous. I was kind of, you know, putting in the back burner the knowledge of self that I was raised with, the deep African spirituality that has me feel so empowered. I was pushing that away. Even the partners that I was dealing with, like my friends, you know, significant others, they weren't reflecting the true power that I had within. So I was like, yeah, I need to dig deeper beyond this aggression and this anger of presentation of like being so solid, because beneath the surface, I was really soft and tender, and I needed to work through that. And in that process, that's when a higher and a more divine level of alignment happened. And once I was able to heal my own stuff, not to say that I'm perfectly healed, but getting through 80% of that stuff to where now I'm only actively healing the things that are currently in my life, not the residuals. I just feel like I'm way more aligned in a healthier space to be able to serve my purpose in a healthier way. Yeah,
that's what's up. And also, and again, if you know, I understand. I'm that male perspective somewhat catching up. So you've also basically you caught up to where you can go just deal with the current and forward. You got taking care of stuff from behind or past.
Yeah,
got taken care of. I got that kind of in order. Now it's kind of just current and moving forward stuff, which that load off the back is gone. That makes it a little easier to move forward, right? To more function.
It is.
I don't got to worry about as much. I can kind of deal with it, which I know, deal with the stuff from the past or behind.
Absolutely.
Which slows us down from making any progress forward, right? It could be small.
Absolutely.
That's definitely dope. One of these quotes I see right here, I'm reading, it says, is it edutainment? Say it for me one time.
Edutainment.
Edutainment mission is to excite community members with opportunities that agitate greatness. What do you mean by that?
You know, it's funny. I had someone who I was working with at an editing capacity, and they were questioning, why do I say I want to agitate greatness? And because most of the time when people say, you know, I'm agitated, it's not a good feeling. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I choose that idea of I'm here to work with humanity to agitate greatness is, let's use the example of a washing machine, right? You put some dirty drawers in that washing machine, you expect it to come out clean. It's not I'm sure if them drawers could talk, they ain't saying, oh, this feels wonderful, going through the purging process, going through the cleansing process. If anything, it's the constant cycle, right? And the soap or the detergent is that medicine, that is the aid, right? The part of the process to help the purging. I'm sure that them drawers is getting flipped upside down, inside out. They're having to be agitated to remove and purge the toxins and the waste. And then they go off with that stream of water. Water is always present in part of our cleansing, whether it's crying or bathing ourselves. And so this is a perfect way for me to identify what I call emotional hygiene. So when I'm talking about agitating greatness, a lot of the times in my interactive keynotes and the workshops and the training facilitations that I do for different organizations, I'm agitating greatness by providing an exploration experience so that they can go through a self-purging process. I'm not their healer per se. I facilitate healing processes, but it's their job to be willing to dive in, to plunge in. It's their job to be willing to recognize that I need some aids and assistance to go through this emotional purging process. Once they go through that, everybody feels refreshed, everybody feels fluffy, everybody feels lighter. And isn't that, you ever see how
what you need though?
Heavy clothes are when they're dirty,
and
how light and fluffy are when they're washed. So I love to use analogies in a lot of my engagements, because oftentimes we can get our feel out of our feelings long enough to understand the concept. Once we understand the concept, then we can transfer it to ourselves and apply it without taking it personal. So agitating greatness for me is the process of creating safe spaces and environments for personal exploration, discovery, and then also them initiating and taking what I have to offer for more self-healing processes that can aid them in the moment and give that instant relief from the frustrations they're having in life, but also equipping their tool belts with different, approaches, perspective shifts, and actual activities that they can use when they get out into the real world. And Miss Marianna is not there, motivating them on. They can apply it in real life. So that's what I mean by agitating greatness.
Nice. And like you said, agitation can cause change. It can cause things to shift and be better than what they were before, right? These keep the same. It doesn't really shift or do anything, but you agitate or you want to go back, you spend more work trying to improve it.
Right.
Okay, that's what's up.
I got a real big spin cycle. Everybody like my spin cycle, how I spin it on them.
It's real big. That's what's up. I like the analogy though, but also for us and me, I'm a visual person as well. So I can think about it. You put a lot of clothes in the washer, it's there for me. So it definitely goes into that. I want to go back to the music part earlier. You talked about being influential as far as like rapping, stuff like that. Who are some of the music people you were listening to or kind of big influences on your life at an early age in the music or in that realm of your life where you're going through, okay, I want to be this? Or who are you kind of looking up to or looking after or mimicking after?
It's interesting. My mother really exposed me to eclectic and all styles of music, but I really took and clung to the jazz era. And that jazz era was the Billie Holidays, was the Sarah Vaughns, was the Ella Fitzgeralds. So there was a softer side of me that really clung to the honesty of it, because Billie Holiday would say some cold stuff. Hush now. She got a song says, "Hush now, don't explain." Right. And she's basically talking about like, I know my man playing on me, but it's all right. Come back home. I'll be here. Right. And so when I got a little older, I was singing these blues songs and these jazz songs.
Knowing
and
the context.
I was like, wait a minute. So it sounded beautiful, but behind it, it was like, yo, there's some issues here. Like, and so in the blues, we're singing, right, our testimonies and our stories. But once you really looked at it, it's like, okay, well, that's not the healthiest thing. And then I started fast forwarding when I fell in love with hip hop. It was kind of the same thing. It was like I was attracted to the power and the wordsmithery of Queen Latifah, or, you know, some of the more proactive songs that like Salt and Pepper had. But at the same time, it was like there was an edge that was required, right? That came from this hardened space. So fast forward, when I started getting to write more of my own poetry and my own lyrics and things, I realized, oh, I'm doing the same thing. And there just came a very distinct point in life. And I was like, I kind of started looking around at my fellow artists who are geniuses, right? But I was like, yo, if we as a people can create all these amazing things, and outside of even art, athletes, right? We take that aggression and that pain to the court or whatever. I realized like, yo, if this is what we can create and produce when we're in pain, what the heck can we do if we got just 50% of the healing that we need from that pain? What would we produce then? And that's when I started getting more into using my words for journalism, right? And public speaking and writing. Because I was like, it's not enough for us to exploit our pain. Because if we do that, we'll initially share our story, right? About, you know, this is my pain, this is my story, this is my truth, which is great. But we will then become rewarded for starting to exploit it, because we don't go beyond the identity of I'm in pain and I come from trauma. And I was like, yo, I don't want my story to stop there. And I don't want my community story to stop there. What can I begin to do to, yes, honor the pain, allow you to process and create from pain, but I actually would love to hear and see some beautiful love songs. I would love to hear, you know, more victorious triumph. And there's an imbalance of that. Usually we're celebrating, right, how much money we make, but behind the scenes, people are unhappy. I want us to get to a more holistic sense of celebratory triumph. And so that's when I had to own my shit and start looking at, like, it's not enough to just be dope on the mic or dope on stage or dope as an MC and host. Who are you when you start removing and purging yourself from that pain? And now I could be honest, I took about a year and a half to just do this real deep journey where I was like, yo, community, I'm not going to be serving you the way I did. And a lot of activists and artists lose themselves in that process. Even sports athletes, they might have a injury which caused them to sit down. And we will go through an extreme identity crisis because we feel purposeless or useless, instead of saying, yo, let me use this time to develop myself, to nurture myself, so that when I do return, I can leave my community more beautiful and beneficial than when I inherited the community and when I inherited these gifts. And so I had no problem with taking that downtime to work on me, and I don't regret it, because now I can speak from a level of authenticity that some people aren't. They're in positions of leaderships, but they've only done a small percentage of that work. They're just depending on the vibrato that they have and the performative ability, but you get to pulling them layers back, and it's like, you ain't really like that in real life. Like you present a good game, right? You got all the team behind you, but like behind the surface, like you really struggling, and you not abiding by the medicine that you're administering to the community. I didn't want to be that person. And so I was willing to sacrifice not being on stage for a while. I was willing to sacrifice not being the lead activist fighting the power while I was had an addiction to marijuana at the time. And a lot of people don't want to face it because it's legal, but most people are heavily dependent on it to the point where it's not just for recreation or light healing. They can't move a day without smoking several times a day. That's an addiction. I don't care what it was. So I had to work through that. I had to deal some healing with my moms. I had to deal with some healings with my daughter so that I could remove, again, some of that stuff of the past. So now when I'm standing in the present, I'm not having no imposter syndrome, and I'm not faking it till I make it. So that's my long preacher teacher sermon on how I got to this space of like really being accountable, but also being confident that I don't have any too much lingering in the darkness anymore.
I mean, you say it's not preaching. It's preaching, but it's facts. But how much of an internal relief is that, though, to get that process done? Yes, it may be a little bit of a struggle. You have to grind, you have to sacrifice yourself. But to now be in this space, how just of a physical relief of knowing what you're doing going forward, and having that strength and positivity and that confirmation, like, hey, now I know I'm 100% me. They're getting me, you know what I mean? How does that feel? Because as we know, we see and we can see, or people we don't want to see in society, we don't look past the first layer, though. We think the first layer is it, when it's more people that. Like, for you personally, though, how much of a just, hey, I accomplished this. I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. This is me. This is what you're going to, this is how you're going to be. I'm going to be me.
Yeah. You know what? It's extremely relieving. And I think that one of the most powerful things that came out of that is I started falling for this trick. I started falling for this trick that a lot of humans, but specifically women, go through. And it's this trick that once you reach a certain age and you ain't fine the same way you was when you was 18, you start decreasing in value. And a couple of years ago, I was really like screwed up in my head because let me just keep it real. Even though like there's fitness gurus and stuff out there, not everybody is a fitness guru. Not everybody is, gonna built to be looking like they're 18. There's things we can do, but this reality out here has people doing so much, whether it's a filter, whether it's puffing stuff up, whatever, that even though you might be able to maintain certain things are supposed to age naturally because that's just what it is, right? Just like a beautiful oak tree. It might be beautiful as a young little sapling, but there's something that's nice in the maturity of that silver hair that's starting to come in. There's something nice about prominent laugh lines, which means this sister has smiled a lot, right? So I started falling for this trick of like, ooh, anti-aging to the extreme, right? To the point now where I see a lot of women, and I'm 44 years old. I think a lot of people don't realize that because of the youthfulness, but that isn't because I'm aging younger. Some people will tease me that. I'm definitely getting the wrinkles and, certain body parts start sliding out. That's the reality of it, right? Just gravity of being on the earth for 44 years. But what I realized is the youthfulness is not about me trying to look or be younger. It's about the relief from not carrying that baggage. Because I know a lot of what women would refer to themselves as baddies out here, right? That might look like they 22.
Yeah.
Breasts up to their chest, booty, obnoxiously big, right? Got all the parts. But when you listen to their heart and their mind and their soul, they sound like they're a 400-year-old slave. Because they're dragging the baggage and overcompensating for the physical dimension. And so I had to I think there's a book called The Art of Unfucking Yourself or something like that, right? I had to really undo some of the trickery that I started seeing in my mind and saying like, yo, I'm more than a physical dimension. The beauty of me and the relief that I have from not mentally dealing with the type of anxiety and depression and these overwhelming thoughts that I had, that's what's allowing me to show up young and vibrant. And then I had to put a little cherry on top of that thing and say, I'm at that age where I ain't a young gal and I ain't a triple OG. I'm like right there. They call me auntie, right? I'm right there. But I was joking with my daughter the other day. I got a 22-year-old daughter, so she's exactly half my age, right? And we was somewhere and they was like, ooh, who the mama, who the daughter, right? I don't think that's so much about how young I look. Your vibe, it was them watching us engage with that act of healing, with that act of joy. And so my point is there's a lot of women falling for the trickery of thinking that their youth and their beauty is the key to feeling happy and fulfilled, maybe even money in this lifetime. And the reality is you can have all of those things, which will eventually, money can get lost and taken and stolen. Your looks will fade naturally as they're supposed to. We're supposed to wrinkle. Ladies out there listening, right? And what do you have after that? Once the booty ain't bobbing no more and you ain't able to have a snatched waist for forever, right? The idea is that we're aging with a level of internal beauty, right? That lasts a lifetime after even when we leave this planet and our spirits evolve to another planet.
That's definitely don't. I would say a lot of guys are going through that phase too now. Dudes be doing the extra. I'm like, it's like, come on, like fellas, let's keep it 100. They say keep it stacked right now. Like y'all here getting these things done too, but also it takes sacrifice to work to maintain the natural. But also those chemicals, they're still chemicals. They don't belong in your body. They weren't given to you already. But also accepting where you are. But I definitely am a vibe and energy person myself. Like just relationships, how you talk to people, how you are in certain environments, right? People feed off that. You can turn the room up or turn the room down off your vibe, but I always definitely want to be the one that turn the room up or people kind of vibe off of like, okay, I can feel that good. When my close friends always say, man, your aura ain't right, Dre. Or you can just tell, man, your aura ain't right. I'm like, that's what you always say, but I'm like, oh, okay, that's a real thing. Like that vibe, aura, how you carry, because that's more internal. You can look a certain way, but your aura be off like, nah, I ain't feeling. We just tell, like some of the partners for years, my college friends, man, they like, man, her vibe ain't right, bro. You could just tell, like, it may look good on the outside, but the aura's not there. And that is a lot because it's inside what matters too. You know what I mean? It's inside that carries your characteristics and how you are as a person as well. Okay, and just a quick, so if you don't mind, how is it you and your daughter relationship, being that you're an outspoken, energetic person, y'all vibe with each other, but how does she, are you looked at as like the cool mom, or you like, my mom's out here doing this, she get it done, or how is that? Just because I mean, I
You
think
know
that
what?
like,
I'm so appreciative of that question, because in all transparency, me and my daughter went through a real rough patch in life for about 2.5 years where we weren't even talking. And I'm okay to share this truth now. We've done the work and she knows that, and we're both open about it. But we went through that rocky time, you know, the pH balance of being a young adult, that goes off, and then trying to be a mom to that in this world, like we ain't perfect.
Yeah.
And so I can be very forthcoming again, in me working through it. Can't nobody bust me out on something that I've already busted myself out on, right? But as much as, and I always tell the story, I have no problem telling it, is there was one time when she was a young girl, she was in middle school. And she came to me and we was going through it over something. And that's a typical age when, you know, that separation starts to occur of a young adult wanting to be more independent, and the parent kind of clings to him, right? And so in my mind, I thought I was the best parent ever, you know, the best one you could get. And she went in on me. And it wasn't that she was disrespectful this particular time. She said, you know, you work with the community and you're a great communicator with the community, but you're awful to communicator with me. Shots fired, right? And so I had a choice right there. I had a choice. A lot of parents in their superiority in positions with their children, they say, talk to me, speak to me, right? You can be honest with me. Parents do not want to hear and get their progress report from their young person. Because we can say in one breath, we're not perfect, but when it comes to our kids, I'm raising you, you know, ask and don't say nothing, or, you know, all these things. What are those weird things, you know, I see you, but don't speak, weird stuff that we tell the kids, be seen and not heard, all this kind of stuff. And so I had a choice in that moment. Now, granted, we did have some more tumultuous times, but when we got to the other side of realizing like, yo, 2.5 years of not talking messed both of us up. And so when we came to this point to heal, when we looked at each other in the eye, I had started going on my own your shit mission. So I was like, I'm not going to play with you. We either going to get this healing or not, right? And she looked at me. I said, you ready to do this? And she looked at me and she said, yes. And we have been on an upward spiral since then. And those conversations and that healing wasn't always easy. So I want to make sure to talk to young adults and parents right now. When and if you are willing to get on that, you don't have one conversation and then once you get frustrated, forget it, I'm done. It took time. I had to do it with my mom, and I had to do it with my daughter. But as a result of that, now to answer your question, my daughter thinks I'm all that. I think, you know, she told her friend the other day, it rocked my world. Her friend said something like, "You always with your mom." She's like, "That's my best friend."
Especially in an important time in our lives, vice versa. And I have a twin sister. So I got to see my mom. I'm like, ooh, two women household, and we both stayed 1 year junior college, but my sister was ready to go after 1 year. She's like, I'm out of here. We're all the way to Alabama for school, you know. And she was like, but at that time she was, you know, you could tell her ready to go, but you can tell through life stuff, and you know, the relationship has gotten stronger. Of course, our mom was around each other at that point, having teenagers. And I was like, I'm outside with the homies playing around the house. I wasn't a troublemaker, but I was like, ooh, this is getting kind of like they really two women. I was like, oh, this is a lot, but I see, you know, it is. Also, you can see the growth now where, okay, communication, supporting each other. But during that time, it was like, oh, this is what you got to stay away from, son. You got to, I'm out. I'll holler at y'all. Or let me step back. But that's definitely dope to hear. And
it was a lot.
Encourage that for all parents or just all people in relationships with, even if it's, I would say even like uncles too, and nieces and nephews, because maybe that outside parent who needs to communicate with your family member or the parent as well too, though, right? You had to advocate for a parent. Sometimes they can separate. They don't want to talk to the parent. Let me go talk to Let's see what my auntie say. At least let me see what she's talking about. But make sure, hey, you got to be on that page. That's definitely.
I think I want to make this one more point to that in terms of young adults. I work with people of all backgrounds, all ages, but I love working with young adults because oftentimes I see how much they're looking, their thirst, that desire that they have to be quenched for what I consider that rites of passage into adulthood. And a lot of eras before us, they had a lot more rites of passages that would happen for young adults to get the wise instruction. And we don't get that no more. Young adults is on this thing a lot. And the people that's behind that programming ain't about them being healthy and strong and productive and carrying out a legacy. Most often, the people that are behind this are trying to figure out how can I get your money and your attention. That's it. That's most of what they want. One thing I do want to say is, what I learned from the experience between me and my daughter is that we were entering that rites of passage stage, but we were battling through it. And I think a lot of the times, and this can happen with adults and young people, where she was trying to establish her voice, her presence, her decision making for herself, right? And I was trying to maintain it like, no, I own you. You're my parent. Yes and no, right? And I have my reasons for certain things that sometimes young folks can't see, right? But what was the issue is that we didn't usher ourselves into a rites of passage to where when it got frustrating, the tension, instead of realizing it was time for us to level up into a new relationship, we felt that we had to break that relationship. And this happens even with lovers, right? When you know you're evolving, just because something is changing doesn't mean you have to break the other person because it's time to evolve to a different space, whether it's leveling up together or leveling away and apart to new paths. And I think in that moment, and what I see a lot of young adults and parents do, is they don't know how to accept that the relationship is changing, right? I can't treat my 22-year-old daughter the way I treated her when she was 12, even if I think I'm the best at it. I have to evolve in my parenting style. I have to make compromises. I have to change the way I communicate. And then the young adult has to understand that as much as I want all the freedom, I can't even barely pay my own cell phone bill yet. So I know I'm not supposed to just do whatever I want. We don't go through these rites of passages. And that's why I love doing training and development for that. So that it's like, okay, we don't have to hate each other just because it's not the same, but we definitely need to do things differently. If not, we will end up breaking the relationship to get away instead of learning new entry points, how to evolve into that healthy space. And now we're able to do that. So our relationship isn't perfect. I don't desire it to be. One thing that I told my daughter, and I'm very vocal about it, is I don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be perfect. We just need to be present enough to evolve and get through whatever issue that we're having. And so I just want to lend that to young adults who feel like they just want to leave and their parents aren't perfect and they're like, I don't need you. You're going to need some guidance at some point. Even if it's not your direct parent that can give that to you, you're going to have to listen to some knowledge and wisdom if you want to survive in this world.
Definitely. You're like, it's sometimes, not a young adult, teenager, sometimes I don't need, I said, everybody needs somebody at some point. Now, what that looks like, we don't know at that time. Right. But it's going to come a time where you need some information. And I think that's definitely dope. And again, shout out to one of my homies, man, Dwight Taylor. He's a effective.
He's such a good speaker.
And that's a big thing too, right? Effective, communicating effectively, right? It may be different for different people. However, if you learn to communicate effectively, it solves a lot of problems. It clears up a lot of information or misinformed things. You just ask questions, or you just be listening, or you can just communicate or go, hey, you know what? I'm not understanding what you're saying. Please help me out. Or can you get somebody else? And that solves a lot of stuff. That's definitely dope. So, but also I think it goes to show the work you guys have put in. You've put in work, right? It's not just if we fixed it real quick, just push a button or watch a video. It's some work that has been putting in. Definitely, again, shout out. While we're right here at this point, though, please give out this information where everybody can find your information out right now. Like website, all that stuff out right now.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You can find all things, in my world at MissMarianna.today. We'll make sure that's in the information when we share this stuff out. Cool. You can get access to my, social media from that space across the boards. It's Miss Marianna 365 because I'm me all day, every day. You can get access there also to purchase the workbook On Your Shit, which is not a heavy read. It's a 50-page workbook, but it's great for people, of all ages. And I'll say this, I've even had parents of middle school students that were like, you know what? The music that they listen to is more hardcore than that 4-letter word. And your 4-letter word at least has an acronym, which means some healing in there. I'm willing to explain that to them and allow the expressive vulgarity for a purpose, because some of the stuff that my middle school student is dealing with has been traumatic, and they need what's in that workbook. Because I could have named the workbook Own Your Trauma. Y'all would have walked right past that thing.
Yep.
Right. So middle school students, high school students, I've used the workbook in college environments, and even with like CEO executives, it's been very instrumental. And then lastly, if you want to inquire on having an interactive keynote, at your, conferences, your summits, if you want a workshop, an interactive workshop, or even a training, maybe for some of your staff or administrators to learn how to better engage, your staff and your clients that you serve. You can do that and book yourself a consultation. You can get on my books. We can sit down, talk about what we need to do to customize the experience so that everybody gets the takeaways that they need. And anybody can go to MissMarianna.today and you can contact me on social media. And lastly, I would say is share the stuff, share the things that I create. I'm also, an editor and a creator, and I try to bring that edutainment to spaces. People, hit me up when #AskMari, and they'll do that because they don't necessarily want to go to like coaching sessions with people or therapy, but they like, I do got one little question. Can you help me? And I'll make a video about it and make it palatable in a short bite of a couple of minutes. So those are all the ways that I can show up in service to you in the community. Yeah.
That's what's up. So I know you have a lot of viral moments already going around. But I think the most recent one was I'm not sure if this session was at Grant High School.
Oh yeah, so that first went viral on TikTok and then on Facebook, and it's a little slower on Instagram. But it was at Grant High School. Let me make sure to shout out a brother by the name of Timothy Poole, who has a program that he started many years ago. It's called Hooked on Fishing, Not Violence. And it was his way, because that was one of the old school rites of passage ways that the old brothers, the OGs would take you out on that water. The water makes you talk, open up. You can't run away nowhere. You're learning a skill for a life, skill, but you also, outside of learning how to fish, you're able to open up and talk. So he took that organization and now he's actually plugged into a variety of schools in the city of Sacramento. And so this viral moment that happened there was, he asked me to come and be a guest speaker because he was saying how they're struggling with respecting women. And although him and a lot of the mentors that he has come in there, they speak about it, he wanted it from a woman's point of view. And so that's that little snippet that kind of rocked the world. Yeah.
A part of the conversation was, and I don't want to misquote this because I've watched it a few times, but I don't know if you can share with this. You brought up like Cardi B and Sexy Red. Initially, what was the question, if you remember, what was the question you asked to the group initially?
I appreciate you asking, because a lot of people will watch a small clip and think they know and can judge everything on it. And it's important to put things in context, or at least use your imagination to put things in context before you challenge it, right? Number one, I want to say I'm not here to criminalize those women that were mentioned. The question and the context that we were talking about is, who are the women who teach you, respect versus disrespect, right? Like the idea and the topic of that day was respecting women. And so when they began to spew off, they were, who gets your attention? Who, when it comes to respect. And a lot of them were naming off the female MCs or like the reality TV show type of people, the viral folks there. And that's who they learn disrespect from. And then I also asked them, well, who do you learn respect from? They said moms, one of two of them might have said auntie. And so what I said was, there's an imbalance there, because you obviously have more women showing you and displaying and teaching you what disrespectful engagement looks like. And then you only got one or two, big mama moms, two women, right? Mainly mom, that's teaching you what respect is. So if you constantly have this imagery of how negative or disrespectful engagement is, but you only got this one or two people in your ear trying to counteract that, it's an imbalance. And that's where I try to slide in and be the great neutralizer in that way, to remind them, like, just because these people are oversaturated because they got a louder megaphone and all these screens, there's some truth and some sweetness and some saviorisms in what Big Mama is really competing with them to say. Right. So I don't mind coming in with what I call, and it's nothing new, that universal auntie energy, that I don't have to have birthed you. I don't have to have known you all your life to be able to be like, hey, like the old school people, hey, you cutting up. I know your mama in the street. That's not what you was raised like. Come on, get your act together. I care, even if I am not tethered to you by virtue of being your actual relative and your auntie. I'm your community auntie. And so that's what that was about. And a lot of people try to attack it, right? Well, what's wrong with Cardi B and what's wrong with Sexy Red? They're successful women. There we go again. Well, what kind of success are we talking about? Because if we're talking about financial success and the success of fame, absolutely, they killing it. by any means necessary. Literally, they are doing what it takes to stay relevant in that way. But those women don't care about the nurturing of your growth and development. Your mama and your big mama, even if they're not perfect, they do. And so I am that loving but firm reminder that I'm not going to compete with these women or talk down to them, but I am going to make sure to usher in opportunities for you to explore how is that influence impacting how you're showing up for your actual girlfriends or sisters or female friends. It is having some impact, whether you want to admit it or not, because you ideally don't even respect those women. They just get your attention because they're saturated and somebody behind the scene is paying for them to be on these screens all day. Ain't nobody paying your mama and your big mama and your auntie to love on you. They're doing that from a space of love. So when I was there with them, a lot of people were saying that I was badgering them, or I was like making them responsible for misogyny. I'm not making them responsible for the conditions of patriarchy and misogyny, but I am telling them, be accountable for how you show up in this lifetime, in this time. And that means you're probably going to have to get more people in your ear that love you for healthy reasons, not for exploitive reasons.
Yeah. And as we know, I mean, that just, it affects, turns on how they treat those who have daughters, those, I mean, whatever, your other man, female in their family or extended family or friends. I mean, those communication things are there. Like those are behaviors that are learned, but that also affect what they're doing in their future. And again, a goal I can tell from the auntie behavior is to keep you out of jails, out of prisons, out of situations where you make the wrong decision based upon what you may feel you've seen or is right. Or,
That's right.
Which, which is something that should be applauded. But again, for us growing up, I mean, I'm an 80s baby as well. That's what it was. Like, you had aunties and mamas like, hey, watch what you're doing. You had to watch it. You have to watch how you move. You have to watch what you say around people. You have to watch how you expect around women, stuff like that. And that we know there's a lack of that right now in the world today. But however, it's something that shouldn't be shunned. Shouldn't be shunned upon either, to do what has been right. Respect when women are asking for respect, but also work both ways. As we know right now, guys should be respected in the same way. Now you see young women, it's turning.
That's right.
Verbally aggressive. They definitely have communicate different. It's definitely different, but it's the respect factor and communication that should be upheld just as people in general. And now we definitely need to go forward.
It's true. And what's so funny is that when I'm working with young adults, people think I'm showing up a certain way. Believe it or not, when I'm working with executives, I'm working with global leaders. I've worked with professional athletes, politicians, all kind of folks. I'm the same way with them. Because it's a space of nurturing that oftentimes when you're in positions of leadership, you don't get. So as much as I might seem to be firm but nurturing with these young adults, I'm showing up with the same auntie-isms with grown adults, because somewhere in there, the malfunction has to do with the lack of accountability. And when you're in positions of leadership, you oftentimes don't, have to deal with accountability the way a young adult is. But that's how we get crooked leaders oftentimes, because they didn't get that accountability at a young age. And then they garnered a sense of power and control and influence. And then that stuff runs amok because nobody can pull them to the side. So believe it or not, I'm not just auntie to kids in the community. I'm auntie to grown adults out here who are sometimes twice my age. I've worked with people in their 70s and 80 years old, and they say there's a wisdom about you. There's an old soul about you that I'm glad I got to work with you before I checked out of this planet so I can work through some of this stuff. So I might be auntie daughter. I might be auntie cousin. I might be auntie friend. But that universal feminine divine energy of giving you a safe space to work through it, to be held accountable in a firm way, but not trying to do any harm. Everybody needs that. Every human being needs that feminine energy, that love.
That's definitely dope.
Dope,
definitely needed. What you got coming up next? I can see, I was looking on the internet. I know you got some stuff on socials, but I'm like, or where can we find what's one that you may want to share or get us to or get our attention on right now?
Definitely. I'm in the kitchen. I'm cooking daily, right? So it's crazy when that piece, that particular video, which is crazy because I've been putting videos out like that for years, but it's just funny how certain things catch, right? Because I did one, there's some with young ladies and they don't respond like that, but I'm not mad at it. Whatever the world responds to is what they respond to, right? But as a result of that, I've had tons of mentors and coaches and educators flood me on every platform like, yo, where's your curriculum at? Where's this at? Where's that at? So there's some amazing things in development, and I want to make sure that, those understand that I'm not here to just be famous in the moment and garner. I really am here to agitate the greatness in those people who want to stand in community council positions as educators, as mentors, as parents. So I have some wonderful things in the making for that. I also have an amazing podcast that I started during COVID, when everybody and their mama had a podcast on Instagram Live, right?
Oh,
And
gotcha.
it's called Refreshing Convos, and it was a tribute to making sure to create safe spaces for conversations, again, for folks who are, artists, entrepreneurs, influencers, so that they can be accountable and healthy in the process of having their fans or their flocks or their followers. And so now I finally got started that a couple months ago, officially on YouTube, because we don't think it ain't real if it ain't on YouTube, right? So that's what's going on. And then also I have a very special project that's launching in the springtime that I won't, announce right away, because what I'm saying, we don't announce the gumbo till it's ready, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But it's definitely coming together. So yeah, folks can definitely plug into Refreshing Convos, which is my podcast that I just officially started on YouTube, and then be prepared for some of more of those tools and resources as a result of some of the skill sets and the approaches that I have being in high demand. And then lastly, just gearing up to tour more schools abroad who are looking for some of that one-on-one work or collective work with their young people and with their staff and folks in positions of leadership. So good things.
Definitely. I know when this drops, it's going to be high demand. My line will get blown up. It's going to pop all even more. I can already tell. People I know, that's going to be easy fix. Next, I got some work stuff offline that we definitely discussed too. I definitely can fill you in, and we can try to connect and do some stuff.
Let's do it.
It's already, timing is everything. I'm a believer in that too, right? So it happens at the right time. So at the end of the show, I always ask my guests, if you're not familiar with it, we'll find out right now. In basketball, we call it triple threat. You dribble, pass, or shoot the basketball. 3 things, right? It's called triple threat. I can dribble, pass, I can shoot. But I ask all my guests, personally, what's your personal triple threat? 3 things that you, Miss Marianna, can explain to your guests who are watching on the show for the first time, who may know you or don't know you. 3 things how you kind of, put your stamp on it, who are like yourself. 3 things that you kind of need to carry yourself by, or how you maneuver, just how you go about your life by. Give me your personal 3 things, your personal triple threat right now.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you wasn't about to ask me about sports, because I'd have fell flat on my face.
That's why I had to give a little more context
broke
behind
both of my ankles, because I don't know nothing about no sports. But I would say my triple threat is the ability to stand in authenticity, to operate out of purpose, and to be of service to community at whatever capacity I serve. Yeah.
Oh, she knew, but you knew exactly what it was. That was easy. It was just explaining what it was. That's definitely dope. So again, y'all heard it here first. I'm live with Miss Marianna. Again, thanks for your time. Be on the lookout for stuff that's coming up. If you guys are looking to get her into your schools, into your meetings, collaborations, please hit the websites, follow on Instagram as well. And again, once this episode drops, we're going to tag her in it, tag all her socials. And you can hit me up too directly, either if need be. I'll definitely be that bridge. And that's what this platform is for as well, as to connect people with you here and far from afar, right? So hopefully just get global with it. Stay moving, stay busy, but get that information out there. But the energy is definitely well respected and well received. And we appreciate you. Again, y'all heard it first live with Coach JT, 94 Feet with Coach JT and Miss Marianna. We are out of here.
Peace. Very good.